The transport ship Freedom exploded in brilliant orange flames against the dark sky of planet Viridian. Captain Ben Torres threw himself behind a large metal piece as burning debris fell around him like deadly rain. His ears rang from the blast, and smoke filled his lungs. When the noise stopped, he looked up to see his ship scattered in pieces across the rocky ground. Ben pushed himself to his feet and checked his supplies. His communication device was broken. His weapon still worked, but he only had 2 energy cells left. His water container had a crack, leaking precious liquid onto the red soil. This was not good. "Well, Torres," he said to himself, "you wanted adventure." The attack had come from nowhere. Ben was just a simple cargo runner, moving supplies between colonies. He had no enemies, or so he thought. The attackers wore black armor and flew ships he did not recognize. They destroyed his vessel without even asking for surrender. Ben looked around the landscape. Viridian was known for its ancient ruins and dangerous wildlife. Most people avoided this planet, which was probably why the attackers chose it for their ambush. Red rock stretched in all directions, broken by deep valleys and strange metal structures left behind by some long-dead civilization. The nearest human settlement was 300 miles away. Without his ship or working communication, Ben needed shelter fast. Night was coming, and Viridian's temperature dropped below freezing after dark. He gathered what supplies he could carry and headed toward a cluster of tall metal towers in the distance. The ancient structures looked intact and might offer protection from both the cold and any predators. As Ben walked, his boots crunched on the strange crystalline sand that covered much of Viridian's surface. The crystals glowed faintly with their own light, creating an eerie blue shimmer across the landscape. Local stories claimed these crystals held mysterious powers, but Ben had always dismissed such tales as settler superstition. The towers grew larger as he approached. They were not made by human hands. The metal was smooth and flowed like water frozen in time. Strange symbols covered the surfaces, glowing softly in patterns that seemed to shift when he was not looking directly at them. Ben found an entrance at the base of the tallest tower. The doorway was oval-shaped and twice his height. Beyond it lay darkness. He activated his small light device and stepped inside. The interior was surprisingly warm. The walls curved upward into shadows his light could not reach. More symbols glowed along the walls, pulsing slowly like a gentle heartbeat. The floor was made of the same smooth metal, but it felt soft under his feet. "Hello?" Ben called out. His voice echoed strangely, as if the walls absorbed some sounds while amplifying others. A soft moan answered him from deeper in the tower. Ben drew his weapon and moved carefully toward the sound. His light revealed a spiral path leading upward along the curved wall. The moaning came again, weak and filled with pain. "Is someone there?" Ben called. "Do you need help?" "Please," came a voice, barely above a whisper. "Please help me." The voice was female and spoke with an accent Ben did not recognize. He followed it up the spiral path, his light dancing across more symbols and strange artwork carved into the walls. Halfway up the tower, Ben found a small chamber with an opening in the wall. Inside, a figure lay curled on the smooth floor. At first glance, she appeared human, but as Ben's light fell upon her, he saw the differences. Her skin had a pale blue tint and seemed to glow faintly from within. Her hair was long and silver, flowing like liquid mercury. Her ears came to gentle points, and when she looked up at him, her eyes were large and violet-colored. She wore robes that might once have been white but were now torn and dirty. On her forehead was a small crystal that flickered weakly with inner light. "You are human," she said, wonder in her voice. "I did not expect to find a human here." Ben lowered his weapon but stayed alert. "Are you hurt? What happened to you?" The woman tried to sit up but fell back with a gasp of pain. "I am dying," she said simply. "I have been separated from my home crystals too long. My energy fades." "Energy?" Ben stepped closer, keeping his light low so it would not hurt her eyes. What do you mean? I am Zara of the Luminar people. We draw life from crystal formations that grow on our world. Without them, we become weak and eventually fade away. She looked at him with those strange violet eyes. You should not stay here, human. The Void Coalition searches for me. When they come, they will destroy anyone who helps me. Ben had heard of the Luminar Empire in stories, but he thought they were myths. Tales spoke of beings who could heal with a touch and generate pure energy that could power entire cities. If the stories were true, such power would be incredibly valuable to the wrong people. The Void Coalition, Ben said. Are they the ones in the black ships? Zara nodded weakly. They hunt my people. We are the last of the royal bloodline. My parents, my brothers, my cousins, all are gone. The coalition harvests our power cores to fuel their war machines. Ben felt anger rise in his chest. He had seen enough bullies in his travels, people who took what they wanted from those weaker than themselves. How long have you been here? 4 days, I think. Maybe 5. Time is difficult to measure when you are dying. Zara closed her eyes. I escaped their attack on my transport, but my shuttle crashed on this world. I found these ruins and hoped they would hide me, but I cannot go much further. The crystal on Zara's forehead flickered more weakly. Ben could see she was telling the truth about dying. Her blue-tinted skin had grown pale, and her breathing was shallow. Where is your home world? Ben asked. How far? Too far for someone in my condition. The journey would take weeks, and I have perhaps days left. Zara opened her eyes again. Why do you care, human? You do not know me. Ben considered the question. Why did he care? He had his own problems. His ship was destroyed, he was stranded on a hostile planet, and now he was talking to an alien princess being hunted by some powerful enemy force. But looking at Zara, Ben remembered stories his grandmother used to tell him about knights and heroes who helped people simply because it was right. She always said that a person's true character showed when they had nothing to gain from doing good. My name is Ben Torres, he said. I am a transport captain, or I was until my ship got blown up a few hours ago. I help people because that is what humans do. Zara studied his face in the light from his device. Your people are known for this. Helping strangers. The good ones are. Ben looked around the chamber. These ruins, they seem to have some kind of power source. You feel warmer here than you did outside. Yes. These towers were built by the ancients. They used crystal technology similar to my people's, but much older. Being here slows my fading, but it cannot stop it. Ben made his decision. Then we need to get you home. That is impossible. I told you, the journey would take weeks, and I have only days. Besides, the coalition has tracking devices. They will follow us wherever we go. Let me worry about that. Ben stood up and began examining the chamber more closely. The symbols on the walls seemed to respond to his presence, glowing brighter when he moved near them. First, we need to make you stronger. These crystals in the walls, can you use them somehow? Zara looked surprised. Perhaps. If I could make physical contact with them and focus what little energy I have left. But the risk is great. If I fail, I will die immediately. And if you do nothing, you die anyway. Ben found a section of wall where the crystals seemed larger and brighter. What do you need me to do? For the next hour, Ben helped Zara position herself against the crystal wall. She placed her hands on the glowing stones and closed her eyes in concentration. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the crystals began to pulse brighter. The light from Zara's forehead crystal grew stronger, and color returned to her skin. But the effort exhausted her. When she finally pulled away from the wall, she could barely stand. It worked, she gasped. I have perhaps a few more days now. But Ben, you must understand, the coalition will never stop hunting me. Even if we could reach my home world, they would follow us there and destroy what remains of my people. Then we make sure they cannot follow us. Ben helped Zara to a more comfortable position. Tell me about these coalition soldiers. What are their weaknesses? Zara looked puzzled. Weaknesses? They have superior technology, vast numbers, and no mercy. I do not understand what you mean. Everyone has weaknesses. Even bullies with big ships and fancy weapons. Ben checked his supplies again. They ambushed me because they knew where I would be. That means they have good intelligence and planning. But it also means they follow predictable patterns. You speak as if you have fought wars before. Not wars, but I have dealt with pirates and corporate raiders. Bullies are bullies, whether they are human or alien. Ben looked at the symbols on the walls, which continued to glow softly. These ruins, how many towers are there? I have seen 12 from outside, but there may be more. They extend deep underground as well. Ben smiled for the first time since his ship exploded. Good. That gives us options. As if summoned by his words, a distant roaring sound echoed through the tower. Ben moved to the chamber opening and looked out. In the sky, 3 black ships descended toward the ruins, their engines glowing red against the dark. They found us, Zara whispered. Ben, you must leave now. There is still time for you to escape. Ben checked his weapons charge and looked at the approaching ships. Not a chance, Princess. We are in this together now. The ships landed outside the tower complex, and Ben could hear the sound of armed figures moving through the ruins. The Void Coalition had arrived, and the real challenge was about to begin. But Ben Torres had made his choice. He would protect Zara, even if it cost him everything. Sometimes, a person had to take a stand, regardless of the odds. The hunt was on. The sound of heavy boots echoed through the tower as coalition soldiers entered the ruins. Ben pressed himself against the wall and listened carefully. He counted at least 6 different sets of footsteps, moving in coordinated patterns. These were trained military forces, not random attackers. They searched the towers systematically, Zara whispered. We have perhaps 10 minutes before they reach this level. Ben studied the chamber they were in. The crystal walls continued to glow, but now that seemed like a disadvantage. The light would make them easy to spot. He noticed that some of the symbols on the walls pulsed in different patterns. When he touched one, it dimmed slightly. Can you control these lights? Ben asked. Zara looked confused. Control them? They respond to life energy, but I have never tried to command them directly. Try now. We need darkness. Zara placed her hands on the nearest crystal cluster and concentrated. The glow began to fade throughout the chamber. Within moments, they were surrounded by complete darkness except for the faint light from Ben's device, which he quickly switched off. The footsteps grew louder. Ben could hear the soldiers talking in a harsh, guttural language he did not recognize. Their voices echoed strangely in the curved passages of the tower. There is another way out, Zara whispered so quietly Ben could barely hear her. These towers connect underground. The ancients built tunnels between all the structures. Show me. Zara felt along the wall until she found a section where the symbols formed a different pattern. She pressed her hand against it, and part of the floor began to slide away, revealing stairs leading down into blackness. The soldiers were close now. Ben could see the glow of their lights beginning to illuminate the spiral path outside their chamber. He helped Zara to the hidden entrance and followed her down into the tunnels. The underground passages were narrow and carved from natural rock rather than the smooth metal of the towers. Strange fungi grew on the walls, providing just enough light to see where they were going. The air was cool and damp, carrying the scent of minerals and something else Ben could not identify. These tunnels are very old, Zara explained as they moved through the winding passages. Older than the towers above. My people believe the ancients used them for protection during great wars. Behind them, Ben heard angry voices and the sound of energy weapons firing. The soldiers had found the chamber and were not pleased to discover their prey had escaped. Can they track us down here? Ben asked. Not easily. The crystal formations in the rock interfere with most scanning devices. But they will search every tunnel eventually. The passage split into 3 directions. Zara paused, placing her hand on the wall. The crystals there pulsed once, then pointed them toward the left tunnel. The crystals remember, she said with wonder. They know which paths lead to safety. They moved deeper into the underground maze. Ben kept his weapon ready and his ears alert for sounds of pursuit. The tunnels branched and twisted in ways that seemed to follow no logical pattern. Several times they had to squeeze through narrow openings or climb over fallen rocks. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a larger cavern. The ceiling was high overhead, lost in darkness. Massive crystal formations grew from the floor and walls, filling the space with soft, multicolored light. The sight took Ben's breath away. This is a natural crystal garden, Zara said. My people would consider this place sacred. Ben noticed that Zara looked stronger here. The crystal on her forehead glowed more brightly, and her skin had regained some of its blue luminescence. Is this helping you? Yes. The energy here is pure and strong. I could survive for weeks in a place like this. Zara walked among the crystal formations, touching them gently. But Ben, we cannot simply hide here forever. The coalition will eventually find us, and when they do, they will destroy this beautiful place. Then we do not hide. We plan. Ben found a flat rock and sat down to think. Tell me more about your people. Why are you so important to them? Zara settled beside him, her robes flowing around her like liquid silver. The Luminar royal bloodline carries genetic markers that allow us to channel crystal energy more efficiently than others of our kind. We can heal great wounds, power massive machines, or even create protective barriers around entire cities. And the coalition wants to use this power for war. Worse than that. They want to harvest our energy cores permanently. The process would turn us into living batteries, conscious but unable to control our own power. We would generate energy for them until our bodies finally gave out. Ben felt sick at the thought. How many of your people are left? Perhaps a few hundred scattered across the galaxy, hiding on remote worlds or in refugee camps. The coalition has systematically hunted us for 3 years. I am the last of the royal family, which makes me their primary target. Because if they capture you, they can use your energy to track down the others. Zara nodded sadly. My connection to our crystal networks is stronger than that of common Luminar. In the wrong hands, it could lead the coalition to every hiding place my people have found. Ben stood up and began pacing among the crystals. So we cannot let them capture you, and we cannot simply run away because they will follow. That leaves us with one option. What option? We stop them. Zara stared at him in disbelief. Ben, these are not pirates or raiders. The Void Coalition commands thousands of warships and millions of soldiers. How can 2 people, one of them injured and dying, possibly stop them? We do not stop all of them. Just the ones here, now. Ben pointed toward the ceiling. How many soldiers do you think they brought to this planet? The ships I saw could carry perhaps 30 soldiers each. So maybe 90 troops total, plus their equipment and support staff. 90 soldiers in an area they do not know, searching for 2 people in tunnels they cannot map properly. Ben smiled grimly. I have faced worse odds. You are insane. Maybe. But I am also right. Ben checked his weapon again. These tunnels give us mobility and concealment. The crystals interfere with their technology. And we have something they do not expect. Which is a human who is tired of bullies pushing people around. Over the next several hours, Ben and Zara planned their counterattack. The cavern had multiple exits leading to different parts of the tower complex. Using Zara's connection to the crystals, they could move unseen through the underground network while the coalition forces searched the towers above. "Your plan is dangerous," Zara said as they prepared to leave the cavern. "If we are caught, my capture will doom my people. If we do nothing, they will find us eventually anyway." Ben made sure his equipment was secure. "But Zara, if something happens to me, I want you to promise something." "What?" "Do not surrender to save my life. Your people need you free more than I need to be rescued." Zara looked at him with those large violet eyes. "Why do you care so much about people you have never met?" Ben considered the question. "On my world, we have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. I may not know your people personally, but I know what it feels like to be hunted and afraid. If I can help stop that, then I will. Your species is strange, Ben Torres. Most beings in the galaxy think only of their own survival and benefit. Then most beings in the galaxy have never learned what it means to be truly alive." Ben activated his light device and headed toward one of the tunnel exits. "Come on, princess. Let us go cause some trouble." Their first target was the coalition's communication array. Ben had spotted it during their landing, a tall antenna extending from the largest of their ships. Without it, the soldiers could not coordinate their search or call for reinforcements. They emerged from the tunnels near the landing site just as Viridian's sun was setting. The three black ships sat in a cleared area between the towers, their hulls reflecting the last rays of daylight. Soldiers patrolled the perimeter, their armor gleaming and their weapons ready. "There," Zara whispered, pointing to the communication array. "But how do we reach it? There are guards everywhere." Ben studied the patrol patterns. The soldiers moved in groups of 3, covering overlapping areas. Every 12 minutes, there was a gap in coverage near the ship with the antenna. It would last maybe 30 seconds. "Can you create a distraction with those crystals?" Ben asked. "What kind of distraction?" "Something bright and attention-getting, but far from where we need to be." Zara closed her eyes and reached out with her mind toward a cluster of crystal formations on the far side of the landing area. The crystals began to pulse and glow more brightly. Then, suddenly, they erupted in a brilliant display of light that lit up the entire area like day. The coalition soldiers immediately moved toward the light display, thinking it might be some kind of signal or trap. In the confusion, Ben and Zara sprinted toward the communication ship. Ben had studied the ship's design while they watched from hiding. The antenna was protected by an energy shield, but the power source for the shield was external. If he could damage the power coupling, the entire array would shut down. They reached the ship just as the crystal display ended. Ben found the power coupling and attached a small explosive charge from his emergency kit. It was not much, but it would have to do. 30 seconds, he told Zara as he set the timer. They ran for cover just as the charge exploded. The communication array went dark, and alarm sirens began wailing throughout the coalition camp. Soldiers ran in all directions, shouting orders and trying to figure out what had happened. "Phase 1 complete," Ben said as they slipped back into the tunnels. Now for the real challenge. But their success had cost them. As they moved through the underground passages, Ben could hear the soldiers changing their tactics. Instead of searching randomly, they were now sealing off tunnel entrances and forcing Ben and Zara toward a specific area. "They are hurting us," Zara realized. "Driving us toward the central tower. Then that is where we make our stand." Ben checked his remaining ammunition. 1 energy cell left, maybe enough for a dozen shots. Not much against 90 soldiers. But as they approached the central tower, Ben realized something important. The coalition was not just trying to capture them. They were afraid of what Ben and Zara might do next. The destruction of their communication array had shown that 2 determined people could cause serious problems for a superior force. Fear made people make mistakes. And Ben was counting on that. The final confrontation was about to begin. The central tower rose high above the other ruins, its smooth walls covered in symbols that pulsed with ancient power. Ben and Zara emerged from the underground tunnels to find coalition soldiers surrounding the structure. Their black armor gleamed in the light from portable generators they had set up around the perimeter. "Surrender now, Princess Zara of the Luminar Empire," a voice boomed from speakers mounted on their equipment. "We have you surrounded. Come out peacefully, and we will spare the human." Ben counted the soldiers visible in the lights. At least 40 of them, all armed with energy weapons and protected by advanced armor. More were probably positioned where he could not see them. "They lie," Zara whispered. "The coalition never spares anyone. If you surrender with me, they will simply execute you to eliminate witnesses." "I know." Ben studied the tower's base, looking for another entrance. "But I was not planning to surrender anyway. Ben, there are too many of them. Even with the tunnels and the crystal interference, we cannot fight 40 soldiers." "You are right. We cannot fight them." Ben found what he was looking for, a small opening in the tower's base, partially hidden by fallen rocks. "But maybe we do not need to fight them. Maybe we just need to outlast them." The coalition commander's voice echoed across the ruins again. "You have 5 minutes to surrender, Princess. After that, we will use force to extract you." Ben led Zara to the hidden entrance. Unlike the other towers, this one felt different as they entered. The walls hummed with energy, and the symbols glowed more brightly. The air itself seemed to vibrate with power. "This tower is the center of the whole complex," Zara said in amazement. "I can feel the energy flowing through it like blood through veins. It connects to every crystal formation on this part of the planet." They climbed the spiral path inside the tower, moving toward the upper levels. Unlike the other towers, this one had multiple chambers branching off from the central spiral. Each chamber contained different arrangements of crystals and mysterious devices left behind by the ancients. In one chamber, Ben found what looked like a control center. Crystalline panels covered the walls, displaying symbols and patterns that shifted and changed. In the center of the room was a circular platform with metal contacts embedded in its surface. "I think this controls the tower's defenses," Ben said, examining the panels. "These symbols, they look like tactical displays." Zara approached one of the panels and placed her hand on its surface. Immediately, the entire chamber filled with light. Images appeared in the air around them, showing the exterior of the tower complex. Ben could see the coalition soldiers taking positions, preparing for their assault. "It is a command center," Zara breathed. "The ancients built this to coordinate the defense of their settlement. But Ben, I do not know how to operate it. My people's crystal technology is similar but much simpler than this." Ben stepped onto the central platform. The metal contacts responded to his presence, glowing with warm light. Suddenly, he could feel the entire network of crystal formations connected to the tower. It was like having 1,000 extra senses, all feeding him information about the energy flows beneath the planet's surface. "I can feel it," Ben said in wonder. "The whole system. It is like a vast machine, waiting for someone to turn it on." "Be careful," Zara warned. "Ancient technology is unpredictable. You could be hurt." Outside, the coalition commander's voice announced that time was up. Energy weapons began firing at the tower's base, trying to blast through its walls. The attacks barely scratched the ancient metal, but Ben could feel the vibrations through the crystal network. More images appeared around them, showing coalition reinforcements arriving from their ships. Ben counted over 60 soldiers now, with heavy weapons and siege equipment. They were serious about capturing Zara. "They brought more troops," Ben observed. "This is not just a hunting party. They want to make sure nothing goes wrong. Because they know that if I escape again, it will inspire my people to keep resisting." Zara moved to another panel, trying to understand its functions. "Ben, even if we could activate these defenses, we are only delaying the inevitable. The coalition has entire fleets. They can bring more soldiers, bigger weapons. Maybe. Ben felt the energy flows pulsing through the platform beneath his feet. But sometimes delaying the inevitable is enough. The towers shuddered as coalition forces brought up a massive siege cannon. The weapon fired a concentrated energy beam that actually dented the tower's wall. Ancient metal that had stood for thousands of years was finally meeting its match. That weapon will breach the tower in minutes, Zara said urgently. Ben, we need to find another way out. But Ben was not looking for an escape route anymore. He was studying the command displays, beginning to understand how the ancient defense system worked. It was not just about protecting one tower or one settlement. The entire crystal network could be turned into a massive energy web, creating barriers that would protect hundreds of miles of territory. Zara, how many of your people are still out there? Hiding on different worlds? I told you, perhaps a few hundred. Why? Because they are going to need somewhere safe to gather. Somewhere the coalition cannot reach them. Ben placed both hands on the platform's control surfaces. Energy flowed through him, connecting him to every crystal on the planet. This world, these ruins, they could become a sanctuary. Ben, what are you thinking? The ancients built this system to create an impenetrable defense network. If I can figure out how to activate it fully, we could turn this entire planet into a fortress. Your people could come here, rebuild, grow strong again. The tower shuddered again as the siege cannon fired. This time, Ben felt the impact through the crystal network like a physical blow. The ancient defenses were responding, trying to protect the tower, but they needed someone to guide them. The system needs a controller, Ben realized. Someone has to stay connected to the network, directing its energy, making decisions about where to focus the defenses. Zara understood immediately. No, Ben. That kind of connection would burn out your nervous system in hours. You would be trading your life for a temporary defense. Temporary might be long enough. Ben looked at the tactical displays showing coalition forces surrounding them. Your people need hope, Zara. They need to know that resistance is possible, that the coalition can be stopped. Another blast shook the tower. Cracks appeared in the walls, and some of the crystal panels went dark. Time was running out. Ben made his decision. He pressed his hands firmly against the control surfaces and opened his mind to the full power of the crystal network. Energy flooded through him, more than any human nervous system was designed to handle. Pain shot through his entire body, but he held on. The tower's defenses came online with a sound like thunder. Energy barriers sprang up around the entire complex, deflecting the siege cannon's next shot. Coalition soldiers found their weapons suddenly powerless against the ancient shields. Ben, stop, Zara pleaded. You are killing yourself. I know. Ben's voice was strained, but determined. Get to the communication chamber. Send a message to your people. Tell them there is a safe place now, a world where they can gather without fear. Zara hesitated, torn between helping Ben and following his instructions. Another blast from the coalition weapons reminded her that time was precious. She ran to the communication chamber while Ben maintained the defenses. Through the crystal network, Ben could feel every coalition soldier on the planet. He could track their movements, predict their tactics, and respond with defensive barriers that appeared wherever they were needed. But the effort was consuming him from the inside out. Zara's voice echoed through the tower as she broadcast her message across the galaxy. This is Princess Zara of the Luminar. To all my people in hiding, hear me now. The planet Viridian has become a sanctuary. The ancient defenses have awakened, and we have a protector who will not let the coalition pass. Come home, my people. Come home and be safe. Ben felt something change in the crystal network. Other Luminar, scattered across distant worlds, were responding to Zara's call. Their energy signatures appeared in his consciousness like distant stars. They were coming. The coalition commander's voice boomed across the ruins again, but now it carried notes of frustration and fear. "Princess Zara, your resistance is pointless. We will bring more ships, more weapons. You cannot hide behind ancient technology forever." Ben opened a communication channel through the tower's systems. His voice carried across every coalition communication device on the planet. "This is Captain Ben Torres of Earth. You want the princess? You go through me first." The siege cannon fired again, but this time Ben was ready. He channeled the network's full power into a focused defensive beam that not only blocked the attack but overloaded the weapon's power core. The massive cannon exploded in brilliant light, taking several coalition soldiers with it. "Impossible," the coalition commander snarled. "How is one human controlling ancient technology?" "Because," Ben replied, his voice growing weaker as the energy burned through him, "sometimes caring about someone else is more powerful than any weapon you can build." Zara returned to the command chamber to find Ben barely conscious, his hands fused to the control surfaces by the energy flowing through them. His hair had turned white, and his eyes glowed with the same light as the crystals. "Ben, please. Let go of the controls. We can find another way." "No other way," Ben whispered. "This is how it has to be. Your people need time to gather, to become strong again. I can give them that time." Outside, more coalition ships were landing. The commander had called for reinforcements, determined to break through the defenses no matter the cost. But as each new wave of attackers approached the tower complex, Ben's barriers stopped them cold. Hours passed. Ben's body was failing, but his will remained strong. Through the crystal network, he could sense Luminar ships approaching Viridian from across the galaxy. Refugees who had hidden for years were finally coming home. "They are coming," Zara told him, tears streaming down her face. "My people are coming. Ben, you did it. You saved us." "Good," Ben managed to say. "That is good." The coalition forces made one final assault, throwing everything they had at the ancient defenses. But Ben channeled every remaining bit of his life force into the barrier network, creating a wall of energy that no weapon could penetrate. When the attack ended, coalition ships began retreating into orbit. They had lost too many soldiers and too much equipment. The planet Viridian was no longer worth the cost. Ben smiled as he felt the first Luminar refugee ship land safely near the tower complex. Then the crystal network gently released him, and Ben Torres, hero of Earth, closed his eyes for the last time. But his sacrifice was only the beginning. Within days, the story of the human who gave his life to protect an alien princess spread across the galaxy. Other species that had suffered under coalition rule began to resist. Resistance cells formed on dozens of worlds, all inspired by the example of one man who chose to stand against impossible odds. Princess Zara, now queen of the Luminar refugees on Viridian, established the Torres Protocol, a galactic alliance dedicated to protecting the innocent from those who would exploit them. She shared Ben's story with every species that would listen, and his example became a rallying cry for freedom throughout the stars. The coalition still existed, still commanded vast fleets and armies. But they no longer faced scattered, hopeless refugees. They faced organized resistance, united by the memory of a human cargo pilot who proved that one person's courage could change the galaxy. Ben Torres had confronted death to keep an alien princess safe, and in doing so, had left a legacy that would burn bright across the stars for generations to come. The light he kindled on Viridian would never be extinguished.